Hey everyone, my name's Tatiana. My booktube channel is called Reading with Tatiana. If you want to come check out my content, I want to say thank you, Josh, for inviting me to be a collaborator for Literary Gladiators. My contribution every month is a non-fiction read this year. So for the month of May, my book is Lifeboat number 8, An Untold Tale of Love, Loss, and Surviving the Titanic by Elizabeth Kaye. I gave this book a 4 out of 5, and this book was also published back in 2012. And as I mentioned, the genre is nonfiction. I always like to talk a bit about the author after I read the books and share that because I feel a lot of times people don't learn about the author, but sometimes it's fun to learn more about them to see how they came about to writing this book or story. So Elizabeth Kaye is born in Maryland, USA in 1945. The way the book is written is it's very short. On my e-reader it's only 80 something pages, so I imagine on a real book it's probably even less, maybe 60 pages. So what I'm saying is she is an award-winning journalist, so it makes sense that this book to me actually kind of read more like a short story or even like a very long journal article. She has written 5 other books, so 6 total, and she has touched on subjects such as the LA Lakers, the Titanic, and the American Ballet Theater. So she has a huge range of topics that she's written on. So this book, Lifeboat number 8, it's a really short story about mostly the first class, actually all only first class passengers, basically the survivors of Lifeboat number 8. And this book kind of talks about their perspective and the retelling of that night. Elizabeth Kaye, the author, did a lot of references and I guess like research and interviews about people who survived the Titanic. So I think a lot of the things in this book is very factual. I think that's why it's so short, because there isn't a lot of room for like storytelling. So she basically talks about the first class passengers, and it's super interesting because it's very evident that the Titanic hit the iceberg. Spoiler alert if you didn't know that. And a lot of first class passengers had that mentality like, hey, nothing bad could happen to the unsinkable Titanic, or oh, I'm like a first class passenger, nothing bad's gonna happen to me. So they were very like non-responsive to the iceberg hitting the Titanic. And even when all the workers were corralling them towards the lifeboat, a lot of them were like, oh, why would I want to go on a lifeboat when I could be comfy on this giant ship? So that really baffled my mind. That's a very interesting perspective. So in this book, Elizabeth Kaye talks about like there's lots of characters or real people, I guess, and their different like upbringing and like their status on the ship, and it was just very interesting. One thing I really enjoyed was she had a big portion of the book about the wireless operator, so the person Jack, coincidentally also Jack in Titanic, but not the same Jack, who had to send out SOS messages, and how he stayed at his duty until the last second possible. And it's kind of crazy because the closest ship was only like 12 or 20 miles away, but for whatever reason, like the people didn't take the cry for help seriously, or they didn't understand the cry for help. And the other thing that was really shocking to learn was that the Titanic actually got warnings for iceberg fields upcoming all throughout the day. But because the first class passengers were so obsessed with sending telegrams back home or to America about their journey on Titanic, like, oh my god, look at me, I'm on Titanic, that the wireless operator Jack didn't have time to receive all the messages, which really blows my mind. To me, it really feels like a disaster that could have been avoided, but it just didn't. So common themes I found out through the book is definitely the idea of humanity, the human condition, what it means to sacrifice, to take a stand, to help others. That I thought that was really interesting. And like one thing I thought was interesting, like is making the right choice and making the wrong choice. For example, in Lifeboat number 8, there were 2 men who were workers or stewards on the Titanic who told the captain that they knew how to row the boat. But when the lifeboat left the Titanic and was in the ocean, it was very evident that they did not know how to row a boat. So it's crazy that they told like a lie to preserve their life. In some way, it's like very shameful, but in some ways, like you kind of have empathy because when you want to preserve your own life. So I thought that was very interesting. On Goodreads, this book got an average of 3.57 out of 5. I think that's very accurate. Reasons why people didn't like it, and this is the same reasons why I didn't like it, was because it was a nonfiction book, it didn't really flesh out any storytelling. So it's lack of emotion and it's very factual. But I mean, like, that's the point of a nonfiction book, right? and people were also sick of the stories of the Titanic, which I kind of disagree with because they felt there was like nothing new. But I mean, like, it's something that happened so long ago, and if you have watched the movie Titanic and maybe was a minor Titanic fan, of course there'd be nothing new. Like, what more could they tell you? Good reviews where people really enjoyed the actual stories and the actual voices of the survivors and focus on Lifeboat number 8, because a lot of people like me only have exposure from the James Cameron movie Titanic, so it's really cool for people and me to kind of read these other stories that happen. One thing that was really sad was most of the third class passengers didn't survive, like I would say like 80%. So it's just kind of unfortunate because it'd be cool to hear their stories, their upbringing, how they got tickets to the Titanic. And now I'll share what this book made me feel, because one thing I like to share or ask people if they ever recommend me a book is how it made them feel. Because if you ask me a week, a year, 5 years from now, I probably won't remember exactly what this book is about, but I'll always remember how it made me feel. So this book, it made me feel very baffled how people have this main character syndrome, especially the first class passengers, how it's so evident they're in danger, but they're just like, we're safe, we just trust the authorities. But sometimes, like, you have to think for yourself. So yeah, that really baffled me. Thanks for watching until the end of my review and my contribution to the Literary Gladiators channel. If you watched until the end, I'll always love if you check out my channel, Reading with Tatiana, and I'll see you guys next month. Bye!